doesn't actually capture, then I'll just do card afterwards. Like if you...
I'm recording,
okay.
sir. Okay. Mr. Peculiar Bear.
Yes.
Oh, you left it in Japanese.
Yeah, I know. I didn't think it mattered. Here, I will cancel and back out. Hold on. Cut the clip. It was in time.
Whoa! Pikachu keychain. If you ever are in Haneda Airport and want one of these, or its hangar counterpart, well, here's how you can find a vending machine. Feel free to screenshot it. Just don't blame me if these instructions become outdated. So, I went to Japan. Honestly, it was always a dream of mine to go. But when my YouTube banner is this, I don't think I needed to tell you that. And when it was announced at the 2022 Pokémon World Championships that next year's Worlds would be in Japan, this dream of mine I never really knew when it was going to come true, slowly but surely became a reality. I considered going even just to spectate and hang out with friends, since I wasn't planning on seriously competing this next season. But after cutting the first event of the year, it motivated me to once again chase an invite, ultimately clinching it at the North American International after placing 29th there. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be traveling to Japan to compete at not even my first Pokémon World Championships, but my second, you would have blown my mind. Going to Japan, playing Pokemon, hanging out with friends, this really was going to be a dream come true. And I planned on making the most out of it. A lot of time that maybe should have been spent on me practicing for Worlds was instead spent on me meticulously working on this Google Doc for me and my friends. I had made an itinerary, listed down all of these places to visit, plus included some other random, useful, miscellaneous information. Basically, I was about as prepared as you could possibly be before a trip. You just don't travel to a foreign country without doing any research. Now, I like being prepared, and you'd rather be over-prepared than under-prepared, right? So, why is it that I titled this video the way I did? Our first full day in Japan was mostly spent in Shibuya, and what other way would you start than by stepping out of Shibuya Station, greeting Hachiko, and outing yourself as a tourist as you have your camera out at the world's busiest crossing. But here in the heart of Shibuya was something far more important than this glorified crosswalk. Where Pokemon fans visit in Japan? Of course we're going to visit a Pokemon Center at some point. And not too far from the crossing was the first Pokemon Center we'd be visiting, at the Shibuya Parco Mall. The first major reason I ever wanted to go to Japan was to visit one of these centers. I remember learning about them when I was like 10 years old, thinking they were the coolest shit in the world. You're telling me there's stores out there with nothing but Pokemon merch? Fuck yeah, I want to go. Well, little did I know I would get a taste of what a Pokemon Center is like many times before I ever set foot in Japan. NYC's Nintendo World has a Pokemon area, so does the Japan store at Epcot, US Nationals have a pop-up shop, and of course there was the store at last year's Worlds. Has the magic of being surrounded by nothing but Pokemon merch been lost a bit? Yeah, it has. I mean, it is basically my everyday life at this point. But was visiting the Shibuya Pokemon Center or any of the other centers still fun? Of course it was. So we went to the store twice, more on that later, and even on my second visit, I found new things to buy. Not gonna go over every item, you can see for yourself however it is I choose to present them here. Instead, I'll just highlight my favorite pickups. There's this cute oven mitt with all these food-based mons on it, a Shurininja aroma diffuser. I know I'm never gonna use for its intended purpose. The World's Free Cocoa plush because they were selling select World's merch early. This bath towel, totally meant for adults. And a Mewtwo City Cutie, because I just had to get a plush of the main man himself. After our first shopping spree and taking in the views surrounding the mall, we made our way towards Harajuku for yet another tourist hotspot, Takeshita Street.
Known for its wacky, quirky, and youth-driven shops selling all sorts of crazy and colorful clothing and accessories.
With its many side streets lined up by trendy shops, fashion boutiques, and fast food stores.
Known for its trendy fashion, unique boutiques, and youth culture.
Check out the fashion boutiques, cosplay and costumes, cafes, food stalls.
Takeshita Street is overflowing with trendy treats, animal cafes, and clothing boutiques.
YouTube videos and online guides will tell you this is an epicenter of quirky fashion trends, dessert shops, and other weird things. And sure, it may be that, but really, it's also just a bunch of tourists who come here because they were told this place is famous. Yeah, we didn't really do anything here on this first visit besides walking up and down the strip through all the foot traffic and making a brief stop at Uniqlo. In my opinion, the real highlight of this area is instead right across the street. I mean, it quite literally is on the other side of the street, but Google Maps made us walk for over half an hour to this one specific entrance to get into it. In retrospect, I think there may have been a shorter path to get inside, but there was one good thing that came about from us walking through this random ass neighborhood. The Red Lobster building. When researching what to do in Shibuya, Meiji Shrine was the thing I was the least familiar with, but it ended up as the highlight of the day. If crowds aren't your type of thing, like at some other places, Meiji Shrine is a relaxing break from all that. Just a chill place to catch your breath from the chaos that is the rest of Tokyo.
These cicadas, man. Yeah. There's that big building again. It's gotta be something. The off-brand version.
Literally, it's just like walk.
This is a very nice place to just go and sit down with people.
There's some places to sit down here if you guys want to sit.
So this shrine is dedicated to former Emperor Meiji and his wife, and that name sounded familiar. That's because of the Meiji Restoration, which I won't pretend to have a full understanding of, as much as I may like my history. The reason I'm even vaguely familiar with it is because, yeah, if you thought I brought up FGO a lot in my London blog, it only makes sense I do the same in the fucking Tokyo blog. Even without knowing any of the historical context, I do highly recommend visiting the shrine if you're visiting Shibuya. Trust me, you're gonna appreciate those moments where you can just take it slow. Due you love Bocchi the Rock? Do you specifically love Bocchi the Rock Episode 9? Then you're gonna love that this is a very real place you can come visit. Enoshima Island. You can come see the cool beach, the sea candle, the friendly wildlife. This spooky cave, punch upstairs, some shrines. I thought it was all pretty cool. When I was editing my friend's blog, oh sorry, did you think this was all my footage? Nah, I had a friend go to Japan a couple months before I did, and he was the one who filmed all this. While he might have only gone because of the island's connection to Bocchi the Rock, and sure, I like that anime too, it wasn't because of that which convinced me on going. It just looked like a fun and worthwhile place to visit. But to make a long story short, the people I planned on going with were either understandably tired from yesterday, or straight up not even in Japan yet when they're supposed to be. I could have gone by myself, but it's not really what I had in mind, so I ended up canceling the trip. As much as I wanted to go, I wasn't going to despair. It was only day 3 of the trip. Sure, it sucked missing out on this, but hey, I still had plenty of other shit I could go do. So I made the best of the bad situation and changed course. Just north of Shibuya from where we were yesterday is Shinjuku. Not just one of my favorite FGO chapters for obvious reasons, but also where we'd be staying for the first leg of the trip, specifically near Shin-Okubu. Despite us staying in Shinjuku, I never actually had a specific time written down for us to go explore the city beyond the area our B&B was in. So this was now the chance to do so. I met up with some other Pokemon players to go have omurais, and I'm not gonna lie, eating this, I had completely forgotten about Enoshima Island. This was definitely my favorite meal of the entire trip. This is another travel tip from yours truly. If you're ever in Shinjuku, come here. It's not even much of a walk from Shinjuku Station. Just make sure to be here early before the line gets too long. Don't be like my friend Luca, who arrived too late to join us for lunch. He instead had to resort to finding a Japanese McDonald's. It's like American McDonald's, but better, I guess.
Left. You're leading the way.
After some walking around and eventually finding a McDonald's, we now had the rest of the day free. And I knew where I wanted to go next. Enoshima Island was one of the places I was most excited to visit. But it wasn't number 1. No. No. Not the island, not anything in Shinjuku or Shibuya, not even anything to do with the World Championships. No. The thing I was by far the most excited to go visit was Akihabara. Which, again, are you really surprised by that? What was originally scheduled for the following day, I decided to go ahead and double dip on visiting Akiba. Though even with the 2 visits, I only just scratched the surface on things I want to do there.
Which one? Oh! I've been meaning to get this card, but in English. The English one's really cheap. It's just like a cool promo. They hired like they hired like a unique artist for it. It's not hideous.
Hired the shittiest artist.
What about this one? Do you like that one? Yeah, this one's good. Tinku. I love Tinku.
One of the things I did make sure to do was use this as an excuse to pick up a new figure. Because, well, here, I can't just visit Akihabara and not come back home with a new figure. A good chunk of time in Akiba was spent at one of the 2 Ami Ami locations there. And if you don't know what Ami Ami is, watch my anime figure video. Apparently a lot of you already have though. Regrettably, I later realized I didn't visit the cooler of the 2 locations, but the one I did visit still had a pretty good selection. In a perfect world, I would have bought way more than just the 1 figure I did, but there was only so much luggage space and spending money I had. I couldn't just blow it on figures when I still had the crazy World's Pokemon Center shopping spree ahead of me. With my eyes set on a handful of figures there, I could only pick one, and I waited to make my final decision the following day. At some point, while we explored what all Akiba had to offer, Luca decided to leave, possibly traumatized due to where I took him earlier.
Where are you taking me?
But my shopping continued at what ended up being my last stop of the day, Mandarake. My second Mandarake of the trip, in fact, as I visited one the day before over at Nakano Broadway following our tour through Shibuya. Mandarake are these impressive stores selling all types of goods from kaiju/mecha/anime figures, random merch, games, CDs. I think there was even a floor dedicated to K-pop or J-pop merch at the Akiba location I went to. But I was there not for any of that, but for the same reason I went to that Melon Books earlier.
That smells like cough syrup.
Yeah. Everything's cough syrup here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not mid.
It's like an 8 out of 10.
Okay.
It's kind of bussin'.
It's bussin'? It does not smell like it would be bussin'.
It doesn't taste like how it smells.
Okay.
This is like the
That's
least
huge.
people I've ever seen online, like ever.
Oh, on VGC syrup? Or I mean, yeah, because we're all in fucking Japan. Or, well, what time is it in the US right now?
It's currently 9 a.m. CST.
That's probably why. No one's awake. They're all sleeping.
A lot of these people are East Coast and Central. Like, we have like 3 West Coasters.
So everyone who was supposed to have been here by yesterday was finally here at the B&B. That meant things were back on schedule and ready to proceed smoothly once again, right? Right? To picture what was ahead of us for this next day, we went from Shinjuku to Shibuya to Akihabara to the Skytree and then all the way back to Shinjuku. If you think this is a lot, it was. So despite Shibuya already crossed off our to-do list for the first of us who arrived, now everyone else is here and they want to go to Shibuya too. You know, you gotta do the famous crossing and all of that. I wish I had realized this before the trip to shuffle things around and avoid doing so much in one day. Originally, today was meant to just have Akiba and Skytree, but now we, and by we, I mean I, had to fit Shibuya onto the itinerary, which meant we were running on a tight schedule I had made for us. Like a teacher chaperoning his students around, I had all of us make haste throughout the day, starting with a second trip to Shibuya, a second visit to the crossing, Parko, and Takeshita Street.
$50% off if you want a maid outfit or a Lolita.
I'm very okay.
Oh, here's the otter place.
Go there.
The otter place? No. Like, go in? I don't think we have time.
We also made a second visit to Uniqlo, since I realized coming here and not picking up at least some Chainsaw Man shirts was pretty stupid. So I corrected that mistake. In fact, what you see is this section they had fully dedicated to Chainsaw Man. There was a cute Pochita figure for some nice photo ops, And the previous day, they even had a guy dressed up as Pochita, which you could line up and take a picture with. I didn't want to make my friends wait for me, so I didn't get in line to take one. I really wanted to.
What? We're in Genshin Impact?
We're in Genshin Impact. Please don't bring Sempra over here, please.
Yeah,
we're in Genshin Impact, guys.
From one place with anime shit to another, well, you know you're in Akiba when you're seeing Genshin and Blue Archive ads. On this go around, we had some crepes, but more importantly, I still had to buy a new figure. I had looked around at Kotobukiya, Ami-Ami, Mandarake, when I wasn't busy stockpiling on dojins. And now next was a store I hadn't specifically planned on visiting, Trader Akiba. This store, much like Mandarake, offered up all types of goods that a group of dorks such as ourselves, currently visiting Japan to compete at a Pokemon tournament, would be interested in. From old games, to consoles, to Gunpla, and of course, anime figures. With my friends onlooking, I'm sure with a mix of confusion and disgust, as I looked around with intense fervor as to what anime figure I would next get to display back home, I eventually gave up and returned to Ami-Ami to make my final decision. Although, not before considering this Jolter figure, I've since bought anyway because I found one for a good price. Only reason I didn't pick it up back in Akiba was because I still wasn't 100% sold on it. I love the outfit, but I don't know. I think the face could be a bit better. But if I did end up going with my number one favorite character, what figure did I end up buying? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this hunk of metal standing before us is the world's third tallest building. Or structure, or tower, I don't know. There's weird semantics when it comes to this. Regardless, it's a big ass man-made thing. And I've been to the Empire State Building. This is like at least a couple feet taller than that.
He's ended up on the fucking table. Like someone picked it up. Wow.
A little nervous. What on his head? Dude, don't be sorry.
It was so smooth.
Oh, that's sick.
This place was pretty much my vlogging nightmare since I felt very awkward pointing a camera in front of people in a space this packed / claustrophobic. So footage here ain't exactly the best. So instead, here, have some photos. Aren't these some nice photos? Doesn't that make you think, wow, I would love to go up that tall building / tower / whatever one day. Oh, wait, never mind. That one's just super blurry. But we weren't just here for the pretty view. We didn't just go to the Sky Tree to hit up what is totally not a tourist trap. No. You know what else the Sky Tree has? Well, not the Sky Tree itself, but this mall it's connected to. Our second Pokemon Center of the trip, in the Kirby Cafe. Only my friend Alex was able to get a reservation to eat there. Lucky bastard. Keeping in theme of this entire day having us in a rush from one place to another, by the time we left the mob of people up in the Sky Tree and walked over to these pair of stores, we only had half an hour until they closed. The upside is that for the only time on this entire trip, we got to experience a Pokemon Center with no crowd. Although, there wasn't much here we were interested in. I think all of us just got this Sky Tree exclusive plush, and maybe one or two other things. By the time I was done with Pokemon, the Kirby Cafe store right next to the center was due to close in... how many minutes? Oh yeah, 3 minutes. 3 fucking minutes. One of my friends back home is a huge Kirby fan, and I promised him I'll get him some merch from here. So without much thought, I just quickly grabbed the first 2 plushies I saw and bought them. Not without me also picking up a spare Kirby for myself, as one final reward for the chaos that was today. If you could only spend a day in Tokyo, what we had just done was about as perfect of a tour of the city as we could get to sample what it has to offer. But squeezing in all that in one day, it was so tiring. Fun, but tiring. I don't recommend it unless you have no other choice. And what was next on our itinerary? Tuesday the 8th, Mount Fuji, Shinjuku Expressway Bus Terminal, 8:45 a.m. departure, subject to change, to Kawaguchiko Station, 10:37 a.m. expected arrival, blah blah blah. So, let me preface this by saying that for these first couple of days, I was effectively in charge of the trip, as we were following my itinerary. Seeing myself in charge, I did feel responsible for all of this to go as smoothly as possible. I didn't do a perfect job, but I did try. So that morning, where I'm pretty sure it was exactly 8 a.m. when I woke up, surrounded by my friends still sleeping, I just sat there in silence, just thinking. That was the exact moment I realized I might have bitten off more than I could chew. Not only did I have to wake everyone up in that moment for us to hopefully catch the bus, not only did some of us still need time to finalize their Worlds team, but what I was really worried about was that we were all fucking exhausted from yesterday. The last thing I wanted was for us to overexert ourselves with this trip right after that marathon of a day. Maybe we would have been fine, but let's just say that maybe I was right to be worried. Being the self-appointed leader in planning, I had taken care of our bus tickets, printed them out all ready to go, but it was all for nothing since I ended up canceling the trip that morning. And unlike the Enoshima cancellation, this one bothered me. Not because we didn't get to go, but because I was upset at myself. In retrospect, I could have planned out these first couple of days much better and avoided having to break the bad news to my friends. I could have avoided the clusterfuck that was day 4 of the trip, to where I wouldn't have been as worried about this excursion right after. Or better yet, I could have just had us take it easy on this last day in Tokyo. Sure, we missed out on some cool views, but it would have made for a more streamlined trip. I suppose hindsight is 2020, but this did serve as a valuable lesson for me. And there I was, thinking I was so prepared for this trip, only for things to fall apart almost immediately. With the day trip cancelled, we instead spent the day practicing for Worlds, all while crammed into a tiny living room/kitchen, on the couch, or on the floor with our laptops out. Just 5 dudes playing Pokemon Showdown while on vacation in Japan. Very exciting. I know. But wait a second. It's getting late. We're done practicing for the day. We're all getting hungry, so why not go out? Why don't we go get some takoyaki? And curry, but that wasn't as cool. With not too far of a walk, we made our way to the equally iconic and infamous Kabukicho on our last night here in Shinjuku for the best octopus I've ever had inside of me. If you know anything about Kabukicho, well, it's like a sesame bun. In the fact that both are incredibly seedy. And for that reason, we weren't too interested in lingering around the area once we were done eating. Despite Kabukicho's reputation, I gotta admit, walking through here was one of the most memorable parts of the trip. While I didn't get to take any video, the energy this place had, especially at night, has really stuck with me. For better or for worse. We might have just passed by to go get some octopus balls, and also an Evangelion mug in my case. But this little excursion will remain one of my favorite parts of the trip. Not a bad way to end what started as a really crappy day. With memories of hostess clubs and other similar services for lonely natives fresh in our minds, it was time for us to say goodbye to Tokyo. And goodbye to our crappy B&B for that matter. The World Championships inched ever closer to us, and we had a Pokemon Center reservation with our name on it down under in Yokohama. Granted, Yokohama is still part of the Tokyo metro area, so technically, we never really left, and thus I can still name this the Tokyo blog in the thumbnail. But before I talk about the Pokemon Center, I want to talk about what all we did down in Yokohama, besides our shopping and, of course, the tournament. The answer is nothing. I had a couple things written down. Giant Gundam, ripped by the way. Chinatown, Aquarium, Cup Noodles Museum. We didn't do any of these. We walked past some of them, but we never went in. Well, okay, we did go to an arcade at this mall we went to like 3 times over the course of our stay. That's a thing we did.
It's not gonna go in now because it poked the claw or the chainsaw. It's gonna fall. Yeah. Oh my god.
Boo.
No! Congratulations, you got it. I'm so kidding as well.
Congratulations, you got a job.
Some of us doing a much better job than others with the claw machines. First try, by the way. But wait, Worlds had all these side events for both competitors and spectators, or when they weren't competing or watching the tournament. Even more than the previous year. Did we do any of those? Oh, a lottery system? Oh, none of us got into any of them? Oh, so no drone show, no Matsuri Park, no Pokemon Cruise, nothing? Okay. What about all the cool photo ops at Yamashita Park or by the red brick warehouses? Oh, we never made time for those. Well... Hey, at least we got some photos of the decorations at the nearby train stations and the Queen Square Mall. Those were cool. Okay, so I do say all this mostly as a joke. Out of all the things that didn't quite go according to plan, this I mind the least. As nice as it would have been to do more in Yokohama while we were there, we were all busy with Worlds related stuff after all. Whether it be making it to the Pokemon Center, practicing, getting in line for check-in, or I don't know, fucking competing and rooting for our friends. And we still spent a lot of time together, hanging out, walking around Yokohama, even if it meant walking around at 11 p.m. trying to find something to eat because everywhere was closed. So we just end up buying food from the Lawson across our hotel. That's fine. Those are still fun memories, and I do treasure all those moments we spent together. Even the memory of us walking in the rain on our way to the World's Pokemon Center when we could have just taken the subway. Oops.
This will be the first time we see the frickin' Among Us sitting cutie, and we can't even grab it. Where's Among Us?
Oh, what was it called?
Where? I don't see him.
Right there.
Oh, there he is, my boy!
Compared to last year, this year's Pokemon Center was not a total nightmare to get into. There was a lottery to gain entry as opposed to the plain reservation system from the last time. But for this, we did get one person out of like a dozen of us who got a spot. So 3 of us were able to tag along with them and go in on the first day. Before I show off all the cool stuff I bought, I do want to talk about the weird mini economy that grew here. The way a nasty, cancerous tumor grows. People were foaming at the mouth to get in. Remember, this was a lottery and not everyone gets to win. Competitors, at the very least, got a guaranteed one-time entry with this wristband they gave us. Once you go in and show it, they would then cut it off. And with every lottery or competitor slot, that person would get to take up to 3 additional people with them. You can start to see how this can be exploited, as these wristbands we were wearing could simply be hidden if we wore long sleeves, or even if yours was already used up, maybe you had a friend or 2 or 3 or whatever amount who still had their wristband, so you could just tag along with them. And doing this, I got to enter the Pokemon Center 3 times. Could have been 4 if I hadn't sat down early to watch World's Finals. So other people just lingering around the corner of the convention center that held the store would just come up to you or were holding up signs asking for entry. It was like the perfume section at a mall, the way people came up to us asking, "Do you have an entry for the Pokemon Center?" Or some variation of that. We even had an instance of a guy offering me and my friend $100 to escort them in. We didn't accept, but just know, the only reason he offered us that much money was because he was going to resell all the shit that he was buying. I'm just gonna make the assumption that he was the type to not give a flying fuck about the actual tournament or anything else going on. Just pure profit. And if you think I'm just making a baseless accusation here, we later saw him walk out with one of these. So you can draw your own conclusion. There were other times though where you could tell it was just somebody who just wanted to get something for themselves, and we did try to escort them in whenever we could. I think one of my friends was even able to get this parent and one of their kids into the store, so that was nice to see. Anyway, here's all the stuff I got, and again, I'm not going to go over every item because I don't need to. So here's a quick montage or whatever I choose to put on screen for the less interesting items. I will say, one extra thing I planned on getting was a ramen bowl, but it was sold out by the time we went in on the first day. So imagine my reaction when at competitor check-in, I got handed this. As far as stuff I did buy, if I have to pick the top 3 things I got, those would be this exclusive Lapras and Pikachu plush, very cute. There's this sick jean jacket, also with a Lapras on it. And finally, this deck, which comes with this awesome promo. This deck, by the way, you could only get 1 per entry, and it cost about $25. Now, how much does it go for on eBay? Oh, I see. Yeah, that's why I got 1 every time I went in. 1 for myself, the other 2 to pay off for the figure and all the dojins I got. Hey man, it's not double standards. I earned my way to be there, alright? I didn't just show up to linger around the convention center and stock up on stuff to put on eBay. I just bought some extra goodies I could sell to help recoup costs.
Missed out on the 2023 Pokémon World Championships. Missed out on all that cool exclusive merch. Didn't have any friends who went there and could have gotten you something without the inflated costs. Well, consider buying from me. Here at Ezekiel's Extravagant eBay Emporium, I offer only the most competitive of prices out there. Why pay $200+ for this world's exclusive deck? We can call in right now and get this at an exclusive $190. A world's exclusive Switch case for only $50. Box not included. Playmats for $40 each. I even have some matching sleeves and deck boxes, each sold separately. Damage counter case I got for free with my World's Competitor kit, $20. Competitor sleeves I also got for free, $40. These deals won't last long, so call in today at 1-900-490-37-325. Again, that's 1-900-490-37-325. Call in today.
So I may have lied when I said we didn't do anything at Worlds besides the actual tournament. Well, at least me and my friend Alex. A special concert was held the day before the tournament, and both of us were able to snag tickets before they sold out. This concert was very much what Symphonic Evolutions was a couple years ago, which I was also lucky enough to attend a showing of. Orchestral renditions of various Pokemon songs performed live. Over the past couple of years, I've grown a bit disillusioned with Pokemon, mostly because of the declining quality of the games. You should watch my Scarlet and Violet video for more on that. And even competing, which I've been doing for over a decade. I love it, but at the same time, I hate it because it can be so stressful at times. I don't know what it was, but watching this performance of all these beautiful orchestral renditions of Pokemon tracks, it genuinely moved me and reminded me of the joys of getting to enjoy this franchise with so many people. Because of Pokemon, I was there in Japan getting to experience all of this. I owe a lot to this franchise, and no matter how cynical I may grow towards it, I still have to keep the good in mind. And as silly as this may sound, sometimes you do just need a reminder like that. I really am glad I was able to experience this live. Even if right after I was feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders again. The World Championships was only a little over 14 hours away, and I still had to finalize my team and get it in game. And so did Alex. As we sat there by the ocean, an absolutely gorgeous and serene view I could have enjoyed for hours on end as a break from this otherwise chaotic trip, we instead stared at our team builder. My team was more or less fully figured out with the practice session we had 2 days earlier, just some final adjustments to be made. We had another good friend on call helping us make said adjustments, and during this time, Alex just went ahead and chose to lock my team after countless back and forth. You can tell how long we sat here because I took these photos, I'm pretty sure right after we sat down. And this photo when we left to then go line up for player check-in. But finally, almost at the last possible moment for us to pick our team, we were done. The entire reason we were even sitting here was up next. Entire season, top 16 at San Diego Regionals, top 128 at Orlando Regionals, top 32 at Hartford Regionals, and finally, top 32 at Columbus Internationals. An entire season building up to this one day. But hold on, let's go back in time for a bit. Back to the year 2015, VGC 2015. My favorite competitive Pokemon format of all time. Not only my favorite, but one in which I feel extremely confident. Yeah, Aerodactyl always protects. Burn?
Yes! Yes! Yes!
The format that would play out at Worlds this year reminded me a lot of 2015. Amoonguss, Cresselia, Heatran, Landorus, Amoonguss, Cresselia, Heatran, Landorus. Both formats even have a top tier Go/Steel type and physical normal type. Of course, this new format has many new tools which didn't exist back then, but I couldn't ignore the similarities. National Dex formats have always been my strongest, and I finally had the opportunity to play what was effectively a National Dex format at Worlds. And if I wanted to do well at Worlds, well, I wanted to use what I was familiar with. Tornadus, Landorus, Heatran, Fluttermane, Rillaboom, and Basculegion. These would be the 6 I would ultimately land on to use at the 2023 Pokémon World Championships. If you know your Pokémon VGC, at a glance, this may not look like much of a 2015 team, but the DNA of one is very much in here. Double Genies was the main duo back in 2015, You'd see either one of Thundurus or Landorus on almost every team, if not both. Thundurus for its unparalleled disruption ability, and Landorus for being the perfect offensive pivot. The prototype of what I'd bring to Worlds did feature both of them. However, Thundurus has been nerfed since its heyday back in Gen 6, and isn't the prime supporter it used to be. And when testing the original version of this team, I did feel something was lacking. So the biggest change I'd wound up making is swapping Thundy for its brother Tornadus. Both are supporter mons with the ability Prankster, support moves in Taunt and Sunny Day, but Torn gets access to Tailwind. With how speed works in newer Pokemon games, simply put, clicking Tailwind is now far more impactful than clicking Thunder Wave or even Scary Face with Thundurus. With Tornadus' ability to click Tailwind being so essential for the team, both the item and Terra type I gave it were meant to act as fail-safes in case my opponent wanted to shut down my Tornadus. Am I facing another Torn with Taunt? Sorry, I got Mental Herb. Have an Iron Hands or Rillaboom that can fake me out? Not if I Terra Ghost. Tornadus support was the linchpin of the team, and thus it turned what used to be more of a bulky offense team meant to trade blows favorably into something far more aggressive. With this new direction, Landorus changed items from Assault Vest, something meant to make it bulkier, to a Choice Scarf. It can hit hard just like it did before, but now even faster. It may seem excessive to have something that makes me faster alongside with Tailwind, but there are going to be situations where either my opponent has their own Tailwind, or I still need Landorus to outspeed key threats even without my Tailwind up. In this world's meta, two of the most prominent Pokemon to be worried about were Qianpao and Urshifu Rapid Strike. Two mons that naturally outspeed Landorus and one-shot it unless I Terrasilize. The big gimmick of Scarlet and Violet is that any Pokemon can change their type in the midst of battle. Before, I had Landorus be able to change into a water type to resist both Shifu and Qianpao. But now with Choice Scarf, I changed to Flying as it served both defensive and offensive utility. I could Terra, outspeed, and one-shot in your Shifu with Flying Terra Blast. As for Qianpao's, the bulk I had allowed it to live some of its ice moves if it came down to that. Otherwise, just by having a Choice Scarf, I could simply just U-turn into it, do super effective damage, and pivot into an ice resist instead, all before it gets to move. Speaking of Urshifu Rapid Strike, this motherfucker was pretty much public enemy number 1 heading into Worlds. Thanks to the geniuses over at Game Freak, who chose not to nerf this Pokemon with the new gen, this dude still has a busted move that always crits, and an ability that allows it to ignore Protect. Protect is the most important and prevalent move in VGC, so if you can just straight up bypass it, and then some, trust me when I say, that's pretty broken. If you didn't have any answers for this dude, you were just asking to go 0-3 drop at Worlds. A countermeasure I had thought of was using Sunny Day, as that halves the damage output of water moves, thus nerfing Urshifu's best move in Surging Strikes. And if I was going to use Sunny Day defensively, why not use it offensively as well? The next two mons I'd add to the team were Heatran and Fluttermane, both making use of the sun in different ways. Heatran was another one of those 2015 staples. Typically used as a bulky attacker, it was meant to sit there and hit hard, spamming Heat Wave. And not much has really changed since then, except for terrestrialization. Heatran, if not holding leftovers back then, almost always held a Shuka Berry to help with its 4-time weakness to ground moves. But now it could just Terra into something else to avoid being one-shot, thus freeing up its item slot. The typical set for Heatran going into Worlds was this. Basically a modern version of its old 2015 set. Sit behind Substitute, slowly heal back up with leftovers, and if you needed to dodge a ground move, you could just turn into a grass type, which resists ground. Sounds cool, right? Wrong. While this set did end up doing well at Worlds, I did have a few problems with it. First, I was finding myself in situations where grass was a double-edged sword, primarily into Qianpao Dragonite teams, where Heatran would end up getting pinned by ground and ice type move double up. Whether I Terra or not, I'm still getting one shot. Second, and far more importantly, was the mirror match. If you have your Grass-type Heatran out versus another Grass-type Heatran, well, because of your ability, you can't hit the other for super effective with Heat Wave. So you can only click Earth Power, which at that point, you're just tickling them. So from the beginning, I ran 3 moves on my Heatran, the standard Heat Wave and Earth Power, plus Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon not only acted as another stab move, great for dealing single target damage, it was also especially great for Flutter Mains, another major threat heading into Worlds. I changed from Terra Grass to Terra Fairy, with Fairy being a solid all-around defensive typing. Before, I had Citrus as a placeholder item on my Heatran, but after my practice session during the trip, I changed to Life Orb, once again reflecting the more offensive direction I was taking the team. In exchange for some of the natural bulk Heatran has, I now hit much harder. That Flash Cannon that was chunking Flutter Mains before, well, now I could straight up one-shot them. And if I have the Sun out, which boosts my fire moves, oh, you just know I was having fun clicking Heat Wave. Funnily enough, this Terra Fairy Life Orb Heatran set I ran at Worlds would eventually become the standard Heatran set. In the months following Worlds, more and more people began to pick up and run this all-out offensive set at tournaments, compared to the slower-paced Lefties substitute set. So, I can at least say I was ahead of the curve with that one. Fluttermane was the one mon that saw no change from the initial 2 final versions of the team. While this mon didn't exist back in 2015, I was still very comfortable using it as I had used it all throughout this season to get my invite. It is by far one of the most flexible and splashable Pokemon of the new generation, and I was planning on using it in the simplest, most brain-dead way possible, holding Choice Specs to hit fast and hit even harder. Its ability Photosynthesis activates when the sun is out, boosting its highest stat. So if I click Sunny Day, Fluttermane not only had a +1 boost to its special attack thanks to its item, it now also had a +1 boost to its speed. Click Terra Fairy with this thing, and not a whole lot is gonna get to move after a Moonblast. The next mon I had was Rillaboom, but it wasn't always a Rilla. The original version of this team instead had an Amoonguss, another premier grass type in VGC. One of the best mons in the entire history of the game. It was good since its debut back in 2011, good in 2015 as previously mentioned, and good all throughout 2023, as I used it on every team I brought to a major tournament. With me getting my invite clicking Spore, Rage Powder, and Pollen Puff for months on end, I felt it was only fitting I use it again at Worlds. But after changing the direction of the team, Amoonguss had to be cut in favor of Rillaboom. Rillaboom is a bulky pivot who could have just as easily fit on my older iteration, but what separates it from Amoonguss were 2 main things: it being much faster, thus being able to make better use of Tailwind, and it having far more of an offensive presence, specifically with its move, Wood Hammer.
See this? This is my boomstick!
Factor in its natural high base power, same type attack bonus, grassy terrain that activates thanks to Rilla's ability. Wood Hammer could boom kill a variety of threats, and if it wasn't an outright one-hit KO, I could still do well over half to many other targets. While Amoonguss could run an offensive move like Leaf Storm, which I in fact did run back in San Diego to cut that regional, and then again in Orlando, it still wasn't at the same level that Rillaboom's Wood Hammer was. But it wasn't just Wood Hammer that made Rillaboom so valuable. Every move on here was incredibly important. Fake Out, Knock Off, and U-Turn all offered utility in their own ways, whether it be preventing key mons from moving for a turn, setting up easier knockouts by removing opposing Assault Vest or Citrus Berry, or turning Rillaboom into a powerful pivot that comboed with Landorus. Both Landorus and Rillaboom had U-Turn, meaning I was able to constantly cycle them in and out to mitigate damage with Intimidate, set up terrain again if I needed to, pressure with Fake Out, or just swap into something else that acted as a defensive switch-in. Finally, was the oddball pick of the team, Bascu Legion. Originally, this slot was Urshifu. Single Strike, not Rapid Strike. Single Strike, as by having Rapid Strike, it was going to be counterintuitive with me also running Sunny Day. Why would I want to be nerfing my best move? So, Single Strike it was. When originally constructing this team, all I was really looking for was a strong physical attacker, and Urshifu fit the bill. But when testing, it was the weakest link on the team. It wasn't until that practice session we all had that we discovered that one of us had possibly just run into another notable group of players on Showdown, and the team they were running had a Basculin Legion. This was a eureka moment for me, as I had failed to consider this mon earlier. This goofy fish introduced in Legends Arceus had 3 great abilities: Swift Swim, Mold Breaker, and Adaptability. That last one being what I would run. Normally, when Pokemon use attacking moves of the same type as them, they get a 1.5 multiplier. But with this ability, that turns into a 2 times multiplier. And Basculin Legion had some pretty powerful moves to abuse with this ability. Wave Crash, the newly introduced water-type variant of Wood Hammer, and most importantly of all, Last Respects. Oh, but isn't Basculin Legion a water type like Urshifu Rapid Strike? Doesn't your own son nerf its damage output? Well, you are right, but I was confident I could avoid having to click a water move while having my own sun out. And in Basculin Legion's case, its most important move is Ghost type, not water. Last Respects is this insanely busted move that grows in power for each member of my team who's been knocked out. With just one member of my team KO'd, this 50 base power move doubles into a base 100. Factor in adaptability, that's a base 200 move right there. For the normies out there who are still watching at this point and know jack shit about competitive Pokemon, that's stronger than Hyper Beam. You know what Hyper Beam is, right? Right, okay. This is stronger than that by 50 points. And you know how Hyper Beam has that drawback where you have to rest a turn after you use it? Last Respects doesn't have any kind of drawback like that. I can just keep using it turn after turn until I'm paying my own Last Respects towards my opponent who just lost to the funny fish. And thus, that is how my team of 6 came about. From a 2015 copy-paste into something more modern. This is what I had placed my bets on for me to do well with. About 2 weeks before I flew to Japan, I was in talks with some other players discussing this double GE team idea, but faith in it was quickly lost. While I still had high hopes for it, seeing everybody else abandon it made me want to step away as well. But I did keep it in the back of my mind as a plan B of sorts, in case I couldn't find anything else to use. It was at this point I swapped over to testing Ursaluna, another new Pokemon that would be legal at Worlds that was seen as one of the top threats. And yet, none of the teams I tested with it really impressed me. Ursaluna, more like Winnie the Pooh.
'Cause it's shitty?
I was spending my time either testing that, planning a trip, or honestly, just playing Tears of the Kingdom. Yes, really. But in my defense, it's a fun game. So can you really blame me? I would board the plane to Japan, head LAX, unsure of what I'd use. I spent days in Japan, forgetting about the whole reason why I was even there. But when reality hit me straight in the face, it was back to business. Not much time was left, so plan B it was. With that practice session and the discussion I had with Alex and our friend Tyson on call following the concert, the Double Genie team was finally perfected. Or, at least perfected about as well as it could have been this close to the tournament. It was now just up to me to pilot it well. Day 1 of this year's Worlds had 7 rounds. The moment you won your 5th match, you were immediately qualified for the second day of competition. just 5 rounds. Just 5! That's all you had to win. Easy, right? I mean, it is the most prestigious tournament of the year, but come on, it's just 5 rounds. And guess what? For my round 1, my opponent didn't show up. Yeah, I straight up got a free win. While everyone else was deep in their battles, or honestly probably calling for judges because their match disconnected, I was just there, twiddling my thumbs in my Rika cosplay. Oh, what? You can't tell I'm cosplaying as her? What about now? Look, I did bring the wig with me, but I was too stressed this morning for me to be in the mood to be wearing it, so I left it in the hotel room. Stressed in the morning, but now I was just thinking how fortunate I was. I now only needed to win 4 rounds to make day 2 at Worlds and compete amongst the best. Compared to last year where I didn't have many expectations, this year I really felt I could make it in, and I was this much closer to doing so. Round 2 would be my first true round, as I was versus a Spanish player running none other than Cresselia Ursaluna, the very archetype I abandoned. Did it manage to get its revenge on me this round? Lucky for me, no. With this being one of the main archetypes you have to prepare for at Worlds, I had a solid game plan versus it. Pivot Landorus and Rillaboom to cycle Intim versus Ursa, fake out the Crest, Basculegion, which either took nothing from Ursa's Facade, or minimal damage from Earthquake thanks to grassy terrain. That plus Fluttermane as another switch in for Facade, and as a way to heavily damage Cresselia, I felt very comfortable in this matchup. As long as I played smart maneuvering these 4 pieces, I knew I could win. Even so, this match did go into a game 3, but luck was on my side. My opponent changed game plans by not only bringing their Amoonguss for the first time, but leading with it. I got an early Rock Slide flinch, preventing it from putting me to sleep, and I was thus able to carry that momentum for the rest of the game. Thanks to some luck, I was now 2-0. But if you thought round 2 was a bit messy due to hacks, round 3 was even messier. My opponent from Chile had practically the exact same team as my last opponent. Though there was one major difference. The set Fluttermane had. This Fluttermane carried Booster Energy and Icy Wind, allowing it to spam fast Icy Winds and provide speed control for its partners. While Fluttermane is busy supporting, Pokemon like the Dragonite and Urshifu are busy taking easy knockouts. I not only underestimated this combo, but my mind was still fixated on the slow mode on the team as I had just battled against it last round. Game 1, I was steamrolled. No ifs, ands, or buts. I got cooked, but I knew what I could do to avoid getting 2-0. Game 2, I led my own fast mode to counter his, but right as the game was heating up, a disconnect happened. Surprise, surprise, this game's shitty spaghetti code strikes again. And at Worlds, no less. We call a judge, and they roll the game as a tie. If I managed to win Game 3, we would play a Game 4 of sudden death. Not letting all of this get to me, I managed to put myself in a winning position Game 3, so I could force the Game 4 to try and win the match from there. I had been able to cycle Intimidates with Landorus onto his Urshifu, and all I needed was to survive the double up from Dragonite's Extreme Speed and Urshifu's Sucker Punch. I knew Landorus could live the double up thanks to the bulk I gave it, so if I could just KO the Urshifu, I could win the game from there. I just needed Urshifu to not crit its Sucker Punch. Urshifu crit Sucker Punch. I lose the game, and thus I lose the set. As messy as this entire round was, I didn't let it affect me. Luck is part of the game, and I had both won and lost plenty of important rounds this season because of it. Round 2, I was able to practically steal a win, and now I lost when I otherwise had it. It is what it is. Round 4 was versus another Latin American player, this time from Mexico. He had the strangest Pokemon I'd play all day in Bruxish, thus making this a battle of the funny fishes. Though from looking at my notes again, I never even brought my own, but I did lose the game he brought his. Despite this round featuring such a weird pick, I don't really remember much from this match. What I do remember was me panicking for a brief second at the very end of Game 3, thinking his Urshifu was Sash, and thus able to KO my Fluttermane with Wicked Blow. But then I remembered it wasn't. His stupid fish may have won the battle, but I still won the war. Round 5 was versus an American player, and his team was nearly identical to the Double Genie team I had before, just a different Urshifu and a different Electric Flying Legendary. This match was fairly straightforward, as I immediately figured out what I needed to do. Abuse speed. My team was faster than his, and I had to abuse that fact. Sure, his Zapdos carried Tailwind like my Tornadus, but it wasn't priority, meaning I could try and double up into it to knock it out before it was able to move and use Tailwind. I may have lost Game 1, I think it was from me getting a bit too cocky and losing momentum near the end, but I do remember me feeling quite comfortable in Game 2 and 3. Thus, I was now 4-1, just one win away from accomplishing what I had set out to do. I felt confident, yet relaxed. Day 2 Worlds was within reach, and I didn't want emotions getting to me. I just wanted to play my best without anything getting in the way. Round 6. Well, before I talk about round 6, I gotta talk a bit about my other tournaments this season. At every tournament I went to, at some point or another, I would end up playing versus a friend. At NAIC, it even happened twice. And when I saw my friend Abdullah posting on Discord he was 4-1 like I was, I knew in the back of my mind what was about to happen. I didn't say anything in the chat, I didn't mention it to anyone at the venue, I just kept it to myself. But just from me thinking about it, I was sadly able to manifest it. My round 6 would be a team kill. 3 rounds earlier, we were sitting side by side, and now in front of each other. One would have to deal with the ever-stressful win and end last round. The other would get a free ticket into Day 2. I was destroyed. And I don't mean metaphorically from now having to deal with this. No, I mean literally. Abdullah completely destroyed me in 2 games. I felt I had a solid matchup versus his Rain team, but he knew what to do better than I did. In Game 1, I was not able to break through his lead of Mental Herb Amoonguss and Assault Vest Iron Hands. Due to her Mental Herb, I couldn't just taunt Amoonguss, and the combination of Assault Vest and Pollen Puff made Iron Hands impossible to KO with what I had. Yeah, Game 1 was a straight up 4-0. As embarrassing as it was to lose this badly, I kept my composure and changed up my game plan for Game 2. And to my surprise, so did he. With how poorly I managed versus his lead last game, I really expected him to stick with it. But now I was facing down a Chien-Pao instead of an Amoonguss. This now gave me some wiggle room I otherwise didn't have in the previous game. So much wiggle room, I almost clutched it out this game too. Even if it was because Abdullah misplayed by not knowing his Basculegion damage calcs. Game 2 came down to my fish versus his Chien-Pao. I knew that Sucker Punch KO'd me. I had already Terra'd, so I couldn't Terra into a pure water type to avoid getting hit for super effective. I went for a last-ditch Aqua Jet as he went for Crunch, thinking the extra power from it was needed to KO my fish. Chien-Pao lives on what must have been like 1 HP. And here is where I must comment on how if I had better prepared and practiced with Basculegion for more than a day, I would have known I needed to run max attack on it. Even with adaptability, the investment I had put into Basculegion's attack stat wasn't enough for it to do its job. While it took me until this point for me to realize this, Alex had already pinged me in chat, telling me that if I made Day 2 Worlds, I needed to go with max attack investment. If only I knew before the tournament. But again, it is what it is. Because at that moment, I was not disappointed with myself. I was instead proud of my friend for him making Day 2 at his first World Championships. I congratulated him as we hugged, even if we awkwardly shook the table for the people next to us, still playing their matches by doing so. From seeing firsthand how well he was playing, I was not surprised one bit when the following day, he would finish 5th in the entire tournament. Returning back to Day 1, my round 7 and final opponent of the day would be versus a French player. I wasn't familiar with their name, but I knew I couldn't underestimate them if they were this close to making Day 2 at Worlds. We traded our team sheets, and I wouldn't necessarily say my heart dropped, but it was something close to that. I saw the Sunny Day Mental Herb Torn, the Specs Fluttermane, and the Terra Fairy Life Orb Heatran. It was a mirror match. As for the other half of the team, it was a Trick Room mode. To keep it simple, I had to guess what mode he would bring. Guess wrong, and I likely lose just from leading incorrectly. My game plan versus the mirror and versus Trick Room were quite different, and not necessarily great into the other mode. I hate mirror matches. VGC players hate mirror matches. Surely, this guy hates mirror matches. I'm gonna guess he goes Trick Room mode. He instead brought his fast mode with Torn Fluttermane. He clicks Tailwind, Terras with Fluttermane, and spams Dazzling Gleam over and over again until I've lost too many resources for me to catch up, even with my own Torn in the back. My back was now against the wall, just a game away from failing what I had set out to do. After an entire day of keeping my mental fortitude up, I was now feeling stressed. Not only stressed, but tired, as I had barely slept the night before, as I stayed up late to finish making my team in-game. I'm no stranger to not sleeping a whole lot before tournaments, and while that doesn't make it any better, especially for Worlds of all tournaments, I did feel well enough throughout the day. All throughout the day, until now. I said fuck it, we ball, and completely disregarded his Trick Room mode as I led my own Tornadus for Game 2. But that is where my confidence ended. I was tired. I was stressed. I played sloppy. And in a game-deciding turn, my Life Orb Heatran was facing down his Life Orb Heatran. In fact, this was the first time in the entire day I brought my Heatran to a game. And not only was it versus a set that can deal with mine, but I just knew he would be faster. My Heatran was meant to be faster than pretty much every other Heatran out there, but it wasn't max speed. In that moment, as I clicked Earth Power, I just knew his would be max speed. It was max speed. I lose my Heatran, and everything after that is a blur. I had lost 2-0. I was so close to making Day 2 at Worlds, but instead, I sat there at 4-3. My opponent burst into tears, and on his little notepad wrote down, "Good game." I congratulated him as I pack up my stuff and step away. He would also go on to top cut the following day, placing 21st. I said how last year I didn't have any real expectations for myself. That's because I had barely been able to qualify, and to be honest, I was not the most confident with my Worlds team. I would have been just happy to go positive, which I almost did. But this year was very different. For one thing, this past season had been my most consistent, and I was hoping to continue my streak of making day 2 at events. Even my worst performance at Orlando, I was just one win away from most likely making cut at that event. And second, the format at this Worlds was one that felt extremely familiar to me. Going into it, I felt confident. Even without the best practice, I had enough faith in myself to perform well and make day 2. But most importantly of all, I just wanted to prove myself. I almost didn't chase an invite this year due to me feeling burnt out from playing this game. I've played competitively for 12 years now, and as much as I love this game and competing, it does wear you out. I love Pokemon. I love VGC, but I love other things too. Sometimes I just want a break from this game. I felt so lucky to have been able to qualify for Worlds yet again, despite how I was feeling about the game. For this Worlds, I just wanted to make day 2, to be able to say I could compete amongst the best. So then after that I could just take a good long break, because I don't know when I'll next get to compete at Worlds. I had high expectations for myself this time around, and I knew I could do it. To see myself at 4-1, so close to me achieving that goal, it felt so good. But to then fail at the very last minute, all that pressure I had put on myself to perform well, it made me crack. After my last round, I stood there in the middle of the venue, waiting for my friends to finish their rounds. But reality slowly set in as I fully processed what all had just happened. I needed to step away. Never in my 12 years of playing had I felt so heartbroken. It fucking hurt. It hurt so much. All I could feel was disappointment. Just wishing I could have done better. I always try to find a positive in bad situations, and I think there's something beautiful about being this invested in what you're passionate about. To get this worked up over a game, to say you play competitive Pokemon, it sounds a bit silly, it sounds a bit dumb, but it's so much more than that. I was in Japan with my friends because I discovered what Pokemon Showdown was 12 years ago. So many good memories, so much good to have come out of all of this. I really have found myself in something I care so much about. Worlds this year absolutely crushed me, but that's because I do love this game. Even if I say I hate it, I really don't. I want to keep playing this game, aim for those highs I dream about, and Worlds turned into this huge reminder as to what I have to do. As much as it hurts to think about what could have been, I don't want to just complain and think about the what ifs. The past has already happened, and let it be a lesson for what is to come. Maybe if I practiced more, maybe if I stuck to my guns and kept grinding my original team, maybe if I didn't play so much damn Zelda, but damn it, it was so addicting. Maybe things could have been different. But hey, now I know for next time. In making this whole video, I realized my experience at Worlds mirrors my experience with the rest of the trip. There were some highs, some lows, really bad lows, and things ultimately didn't quite go how I wanted to. Now, as much as I would love to continue being all sentimental here and start wrapping up the video with all of this in mind, I do still have 2 more days to talk about. Though, I almost wish I didn't. Because for all the things that didn't quite go how I wanted to up until this point, it was all nothing compared to what would lie ahead of me. I say this genuinely, without an ounce of exaggeration. The finale to this trip was the most miserable experience of my life. I thought the very end of my London trip was pretty bad, but this, I would soon witness true horror. For my final 2 days in Japan, I left Yokohama and returned to Tokyo, now staying at the Hilton in Odaiba. Odaiba, I did not know until after my trip, happens to be where Love Live Nijigasaki takes place. Until I started making this video, I hadn't watched it cause I watch far less anime than people think. Slight tangent, but another thing I missed which I completely forgot about when I was in Akiba, despite me having written it down, was visiting Kanda Shrine. It's featured in the first Love Live series, and fans like to come visit the real-life location. Since I was in the area, I figured I could go try and visit it for myself. I may have forgotten about that, but as a consolation, I got to spend time in Odaiba. From the first season and 2 episodes of season 2 I saw as of writing this, I can confirm that, yep, this is definitely Odaiba. That's the Rainbow Bridge. That's the train line we took to get into Odaiba. There's the fake Statue of Liberty, which is right by the Hilton. Speaking of, this is literally the Hilton. Like, this view the characters are looking at, I fucking experienced that for myself. The reaction I had when this scene came up, I don't know why, but it got me so excited. Maybe it sounds kind of cringy, being this excited, being at the real life location of some anime, and normally I wouldn't really go out of my way to go do some IRL location pilgrimage or plan a whole day or trip around it. But because of this silly series I like, looking back on these last 2 days, I can at least remember them a bit more fondly. I wasn't too familiar with Odaiba before my trip, but I should have been because besides its connection to one of my favorite anime series, it's the location of the Tokyo Big Sight, aka big reason number 3 why I've wanted to visit Japan, as this convention center is the home of Comic Market, more commonly known as Comic-Cat. It's this big convention where lots of cosplayers show up and vendors sell doujinshi, which is a term describing self-published works. Some people think doujins just refer to this, but that's only a percentage of what doujins are, okay? I've always wanted to go, but of course, what I should have taken as a sign of things to come, the summer edition of Comic-Cat this year was held the exact same weekend as Worlds. I had even pre-bought my tickets in case I didn't make day 2 at Worlds, but I still didn't end up going. Honestly, it was going to be too much of a hassle waking up early and commuting there, so I skipped out on it. Just wasn't meant to be. The plans I had written down for these last 2 days in Japan also weren't meant to be, and they got replaced by some lighter activities. So for this trip, I had originally planned for us to visit 3 Pokemon centers, not counting the world's pop-up shop: Shibuya, Skytree, and Yokohama. The permanent Pokemon Center in Yokohama, I did get to visit on my last day there, but they were only accepting entry through reservation. All I was able to do there was take some pics of my disappointment. Well, now that our schedule was cleared up for our penultimate day here, we said, fuck it, let's go visit a 4th Pokemon Center, Tokyo DX. Having done my research, I already knew what this store would be like, sporting an impressive display with all of the main series games as you enter the store. Tokyo DX is in fact the original Pokemon Center, granted with an asterisk as this current iteration is not in the original location, but it serves as its spiritual successor as it is located near where the original was. I guess for this reason, this location is a bit more sentimental to the Pokemon Company, hence this cool display. I was pretty content with all the shopping I had done by this point, and so were my friends. This was really more so to visit the store than to actually buy much of anything. And even if I felt like spending some more of my yen, I straight up had no space in my bags to fit whatever else I wanted to buy. Even a smaller plush would present a challenge in stuffing it somewhere. All I ended up getting here was one of those cute blind box mini Pokemon displays, which I always wanted to get due to watching Max Mofo's Pokemon channel.
What is this shit?
I got that, and some figures from the gachapon machines they had by the entrance. Nothing crazy, just a cute reminder of this final store I would get to hit up on this trip. Gonna go on another tangent here, but something funny after having learned about all the Pokemon centers in Tokyo. Anytime I see a post now where someone is like, "Oh my god, I'm at the Tokyo Pokemon Center," I'm just gonna think, buddy, you gotta specify which. Tokyo has 4 to 7 Pokemon centers depending on which metric we're going by. Tokyo proper has 4 main Pokemon centers: Shibuya, Skytree, Mega Tokyo, and Tokyo DX. 5 if you want to include the mini Pokemon store at Tokyo Station, and 7 if you want to count the greater Tokyo metro area, which includes Yokohama and Shiba. Now, as cool as it was to visit this store, there was one problem. The entire time I was there, I was never completely comfortable because I was starting to feel a bit sick. I was worried this might happen since the start of the trip. Pretty much every day was waking up early, lots of walking, and going to bed late. In fact, pretty much the same thing happened when I got back from San Diego Regionals. I had barely slept that entire weekend and was so tired that I ended up getting sick. When I was talking about the Mount Fuji trip, this was specifically what I was worried about. I knew how this shit goes sometimes, and I didn't want to risk any severe burnout. But for all the people who did get sick, of course, it was none other than me. I woke up this day feeling far worse than I did the day before. I was hoping that with some sleep, I'd feel a lot better, but it was too little too late at that point. And what was both a blessing and a curse, in just a few hours, we'd be checking out of the hotel and heading back to Haneda Airport. A blessing, because if I had to get sick on any day of this trip, at least it was on the last day. But a curse, because being this low energy turned what was going to already be a tiring experience into a living nightmare. The journey back home would start in Tokyo, with a 7-hour flight to Honolulu, 4-hour layover there. Then a 4.5-hour flight to LA, 6-hour layover overnight, 3-hour flight to Dallas. I didn't even know about this stop until the day of. Then finally, a 1-hour flight back to Houston. A grand total travel time of about 25 hours. I knew this wasn't going to be fun. It's what I signed up for. I also knew I was going to be returning back like a pack mule. Again, I knew this. But doing all of this while sick, though, it just fucking sucked. It just fucking sucked. But surprisingly, this last day did have a few positives which are worth mentioning. The Aqua City Mall we went to before we left to the airport, cool place. Wish I was in better spirits to have explored more of it. The security at Haneda, the easiest, smoothest experience I've ever had at an airport. Crazy enough, I even found this random Vanguard card on the floor while waiting to retrieve my luggage while they scanned it. To the person out there who somehow dropped this card, I wish I could return it to you, but no, it fell into safe hands. At our gate, we even encountered some other Pokemon players, so we had a nice chat there. And finally, I just want to give a huge thank you to my friend Gio. We flew in and then flew out together, and just having someone around to talk to kept me from going completely delirious. Those were the positives. Everything else, from the moment I woke up that morning, to me finally being back home and tucked in my bed, was a living hell. Genuinely, I don't have the words to describe how awful this experience was. I could seriously be here for another half hour just ranting about it, but I'd be wasting time and it still just wouldn't do it justice. When I landed back home, you just needed to have seen me there, because with just one look, you would have understood. It's funny looking back on all of this. The trip I had dreamt about for years, getting to go experience Japan. At the end of it all, I was just fucking begging to God, wishing I could be back home. The trip of a lifetime ended about as poorly as it could have.
Oh, I don't give two flying fucks anymore. I just want to go home. I don't care.
I was so tired, not just from the 25-hour-long commute, but from the entire trip, that for a week straight after I was back home, I would wake up, eat, shower, maybe play some Tears of the Kingdom for a few hours, then go back to sleep. I had the sleep schedule of a fucking sloth, cause that's all I did. I was that tired from all of this. To finish what I was saying earlier, this trip really was one huge learning experience. There I was, thinking I was perfectly prepared, ready for anything, but nope. Like I said, I do try to take the good with the bad. And looking back on all of this, I regret some things, sure, but all I can do now is just talk about it and laugh at myself. If only I knew better. I planned so much for this trip, set such high expectations for it, and it just didn't go how I wanted to. So many things went sideways, almost to a comical degree, even things I didn't mention in this video. And that's fine. I still had so much fun. I was still there with my friends, all of us enjoying ourselves, except for those times when they would barge into our hotel room and stay there until 3 a.m. because, guys, we're really tired and we just want to go to bed already. Even with how this trip turned out, I'm glad I went. I'm glad I was able to compete at Worlds again. And thanks to everything that happened, now I know how I can make it better for next time. Both at my next Worlds, whenever it is I do get another invite, and for when I visit Japan again, because of course I'm gonna go again. But this first go around, these 12 days, this sliver of Japan I was able to experience, despite it all, it was still a dream come true.